AI designs antibiotics for gonorrhea and MRSA superbugs. An artificial intelligence has invented 2 new potential antibiotics that could kill drug-resistant gonorrhea and MRSA, researchers have revealed. The drugs were designed atom by atom by the AI and killed the superbugs in laboratory and animal tests. Good morning, everybody. We've got a bit more information on ChatGPT-5, which is obviously the big news story this week. And then probably the biggest story that has just come out is Meta's AI ethics have leaked. Reuters, the news agency, got a copy of them, and they're not good. They're really not good. There are lines in it about allowing children to have romantic and sexual conversations with Meta's chatbot. So not great. So we're going to have a look at that. We don't have the actual documentation, but we do have Reuters' report on it. So we'll have a look at that in a moment. First, so before we get to that fun topic to wrap up the week, ChatGPT or OpenAI have released kind of a summary statement. It's been such a busy week in terms of their updates because they launched last Thursday and it's been a rocky, rough launch to say the least. So they've done a bit of a summary just to remind us what they've been doing over the last week. I do not envy the people working at OpenAI because it's going to be a hell of a week, basically. So recapping the updates we've made to ChatGPT in the past week. GPT-4o is now available under legacy models by default for paid users. So initially you had to turn that on in the settings. They realized that's making it a bit difficult. So they just made it available. So if you're on a paid plan, any type of paid plan, you can now find GPT-4 directly. You don't need to turn anything on. Paid users can now toggle show additional models in settings. So this one is hidden away in the settings. Don't know what they're thinking, but that's fine. So in settings, to add legacy models like O3 and GPT-4.1, not 4.5, interestingly, but you can get 4.1 and O3. So what we're ending up now with is part of the big push has been to get rid of models. And now we have, I do feel sorry for them sometimes, we have GPT-5, Auto, Fast, Thinking Mini, Thinking, and Pro. Then we have a drop down for legacy models with GPT-4, GPT 4.1, O3, and O4 Mini. So one of their big drives was to try and simplify that menu so that people didn't have to make a choice. And I now think we have more models than when we started out with. So it has not gone how they planned. They wanted that to be GPT-5, and that was it. That is not the case. We now have to choose between 8 or 9 different models, which is completely the opposite of what they were trying to do. So that is a full retreat. I don't think there's any other way to phrase that. That's a failure, basically. And I think they know this. So the next thing is GPT-5 includes auto fast thinking in the model picker. Fast gives faster answers. Thank you, OpenAI. Thinking takes more time to give deeper answers, and auto routes between fast and thinking. So one of the big issues this week has been with the routing or the routing, however you want me to say it. People get annoyed. And the fact that there are 4 underlying sub-models, I'm not quite sure what we call them, models inside GPT-5. It's basically a bunch of kids in a trench coat trying to get into a film. Underneath the GPT-5 kind of wrapper, that's not the right term, top level model, you have GPT-5 high, GPT-5 medium, GPT-5 low, and GPT-5 minimal. So it can be routed through all of those models. But now they've overlaid that with fast, auto, and thinking. So thinking presumably is going to send you to the high model, whereas fast is going to send you to minimal or low, accreting more and more complexity here. I see what they're trying to do, but it's messy, very messy. And I think this has had implications this week with people just being confused about ChatGPT-5 because it is a good model, but it is hidden under so many layers of crap that people shouldn't have to deal with, that I think that's getting in the way of people realizing, oh, actually, at the high end, this model is really good. This is a really good model. But people have not realized that because they're getting routed to different models, or they don't know where to look, or they're using it for different purposes from what OpenAI assume we're using it for, which is coding and analytical work. So Plus and Teams users now get up to 3,000 messages a week on GPT-5 Thinking, which honestly is a lot. That's a lot of messages. I imagine if everybody used all of their messages, they'd be in a lot of trouble. With extra capacity on GPT-5 Thinking Mini when the limit is hit. Okay, 3,000 messages is generous. I don't think that's a problem. And now GPT-5 is available on enterprise and educational users, educational accounts. So there was a delay of a week. They said this at the live stream. They said we're going to be rolling out to paid and free, and then next week to the enterprise. It's also built into Copilot. So underlying Microsoft Copilot is ChatGPT, or sorry, is GPT-4o or GPT-5 now. I was just talking to somebody who works at a Microsoft organization, and they were saying, wow, how did they make Copilot worse? So Copilot already was not very good, and apparently the GPT-5 integration with it has not helped. I have not used it myself. I do not like Microsoft Copilot. I don't know anybody who does. I think the idea is great, but the implementation behind it is not very good. And then finally, coming soon, now this is a big one, a warmer, more familiar personality for GPT-5. Ooh, that's risky. So a lot of the discourse this week has been between the people who really liked the personality of 4.0. And when I say really liked, some people were stronger than that. They were in love with that more warm, that more generous model. So between those people, there's a lot of them on Reddit. It's fascinating to see. And between the people who just want an analytical model for doing work like coding and analysis and high level thinking. So we've got a split between people who want IQ and people who want EQ. Nobody's really happy at the moment, or very few people. And it looks like they want to nudge the personality towards the 4.0 personality. So a more warmer and familiar personality. I don't think that's going to make anyone happy. I think this is a weird, they're going for a happy medium that I don't think is going to work. A tweet I saw this morning from a guy called Nathan Lands. He runs law.com. You should follow him. He's got interesting viewpoints on AI. And I think he's hit the nail on the head here, where he says GPT-5 shows we've crossed the point where most people can't tell if one AI model is better than another. From here, models will be judged on vibe and utility. Do I like the way it responds to me? Can it actually do something useful? Does it remember me and what matters? So I think this is true. I think we've reached a point where the average person cannot tell the difference in the intelligence between these models. They've all come so far that they are as smart or slightly smarter than most humans. Smart is a very loaded term here, but the intelligence level, again, that's very loaded, is at a point where it's really hard for us to discern the difference, which is why when there's a new launch and we try out new models, we're like, oh yeah, it's good. But it's very hard to leap beyond that in any meaningful way. So what might happen now, and I agree with Nathan here, is we will stop judging them on their pure kind of power. And instead, it's going to be much more about whether we like working with them and what they can do for us. Honestly, I think this is a much healthier and better way to work with these models, because every time a new model comes out and we have this debate about, oh, it's stupid or it's smarter, that doesn't mean anything. We don't really have a good, solid definition of what that is. Yes, we have the benchmarks, but we've seen the benchmarks are fairly flawed, and you can do really well on a benchmark, but then you take the model home and you use it at home and you realize, oh, it's not very useful. That's what we need to start judging it on, is how useful is it for the tasks that we want it to do? How good is it at refactoring a code base? How good is it at writing a newsletter, for example? It's going to be based on the tasks. And that means that all of us are going to find different AIs that are good for us, because that's subjective. Because we are the ones who know how to do these tasks well, and we're the ones who are judging the AIs. So I think that's a much healthier way to be looking at these AIs. And because we've kind of maxed out the intelligence, or it's caught up with humans, more or less, I think this is going to be a much more practical way of dealing with it as we move forward. And also the personality. Sounds weird, but do you get on with your artificial intelligence, or does it frustrate you and you don't want to talk to it anymore? That is important, because for you to continue to interface with it, you need to be in a place where you're happy to continue talking. There is a vibe part of that as well. And a lot of people do not like the vibe of GPT-5, so they are not using it, which from a model point of view, that's a failure. That's a failure as a product. I'm going to switch over to some questions and then talk about what have we got? We've got AI has designed a new MRSA drug to take out the superbug MRSA. And we also have Meta's AI ethics policy, which has been leaked and is extremely problematic. Hey, Tamas, how are you doing? Good morning. And thank you for, I saw the nice comment you put on one of my Instagram posts. You didn't need to do that, so thank you. That was very kind of you. There's a lot of you joining. Good morning, everybody. Thoughts on context and memory being portable and user controlled, especially enterprise. So I think context and memory is the killer app when it comes to using artificial intelligences. So we've seen all of this week, I was about to say, other models realizing that's not the case. They know that this is important. So ChatGPT for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, roughly, has had persistent memory. So when you talk to ChatGPT, it will remember information about you. Really useful because then you don't need to continue to give it context because it already has that context saved somewhere in its persistent memory and it can pull in on that. So for example, the example I like to give is I have this nice YouTube setup and it's very complex. If you've seen a photo of it, I put a photo of it in my last week's newsletter, I think. There's a lot of stuff going on. I'm about to add a new video encoder so I can do 4K video for the stream. So it's going to look better. But to do that, I need to change all of my configuration. And that's complicated if I had to use an AI that didn't have memory, because I'd have to explain the whole of the current configuration and all of the settings to the AI and then say, hey, how do I plug in this new graphics card, basically? Whereas ChatGPT already knows my setup. It knows what's wired to what encoders I'm using, what OBS settings, etc. It knows all of that because it's in the persistent memory. So it's able to say, oh, okay, cool, you've got this new Elgato, you're going to plug it in here, dum, 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 this is where you connect it. Saves a huge amount of time. And that's because there is context and persistent memory. So Google Gemini has just added this as of 2 days ago, and Claude by Anthropic have added a version of this, but it's very much cut down. It's the ability to proactively ask Claude to go and fetch new memories from, existing memories from other documents. So it can tap into other chats you've had and pull out the information. Not quite the same. That's what a Gemini used to have, but now Gemini has a full persistent memory like ChatGPT, which makes it a lot more useful because it makes it more sticky. So the question here was thoughts on context and memory being portable and user controlled, especially enterprise. Having a mini persistent memory that you can keep and you could potentially plug into new AIs. So let's say I had the persistent memory that I've created in ChatGPT. It has all my YouTube set up. It knows all about my business. It knows probably far too much about me, more than it should. Having that in a file, in a small database that I can then plug into other AIs would be really useful because that would allow me to switch over to Claude or switch to Gemini and to get rolling immediately because I have a portable brain, basically, which has all of the context about me. Extremely valuable, but not something that OpenAI will want to do because it creates stickiness in their ecosystem. The more you use an AI that has a persistent memory, the more useful that AI becomes. So I'm very much a Claude maximalist. The last couple of years, I've mainly been using Claude. That is changing. And that's changing because of the ChatGPT memory. The fact it has that persistent memory is making my usage of ChatGPT more sticky. I'm more likely to go back to ChatGPT now because I know it knows about me. If they were to release that memory and allow it to be portable, that makes it less sticky because I can then go to other AIs. So I think the idea of a portable context and memory, really cool. And you can probably, I haven't seen anyone do this, but you could probably do it with open source models. I'm sure there's a way to do it to encode and embed and basically have on a thumb drive a portable memory that you plug into other AIs. I would love that. I don't think the companies will integrate that because of the stickiness factor, the fact that it means you go off their platform. But we'll see. That could be a really cool business, actually. Somebody who just creates like a third brain startup, which is you sync it up with all your AIs and it creates this one persistent memory that they can all pull on. That would be extremely cool. And I would pay good money for that. Emin says, hey, Kyle, how do I learn how to do AI SEO to get businesses to rank in AI chat? Do you have a course? I do not have a course. This is a big question that everyone's trying to work out because nobody really knows. And the basic answer, though, is get good at SEO because the AI models are trained on the internet, basically. So they look for the importance of information on the internet. So if you're already showing up in SEO, if you're already ranking on Google, if you have a strong social media presence, then you're going to be more likely to show up in the large language models. So the kind of basics are the same. You need to become known. So things like content marketing are still in play. things like social media strategy, paying influencers to come and talk about your business, etc., that's still in play because all of that gets picked up in the training of the model. Yes, there's probably going to be little ways to trick it in the same way that in search engine optimization, there are gray hat and black hat tactics. However, those tactics in SEO, and I'm sure in AIEO or GEO, generative engine optimization, we don't even have a name for this or an agreed upon name. I'm sure these tactics will be found out and removed. So as in SEO, the best thing you can do is just build your brand's presence online so that people know about you. Like it's very basic, but you do that from a brand and business point of view. So you don't try and trick the algorithms. You just put value out, you put out content, you make sure people actually want to visit your site, etc., etc. Exactly the same with SEO, but that's going to get picked up in the artificial intelligence engines as well. There are courses on how to trick it and asking repeatedly about your business, etc., until it turns up, and then potentially that will go into next training. I don't know how useful those things are going to be. There are some genuine technical things, like make sure you use Bing Webmaster. Bing? No. What's the Microsoft one? It is Bing, isn't it? Use Bing Webmaster as well as Google Webmaster to register your page, because ChatGPT uses Bing for some of its scraping and some of its visibility. So things like that, absolutely. But I don't think there are agreed upon ways to trick it yet. Obviously, there's going to be lots of social media posts saying, this is how you rank number one on ChatGPT. Most of it's going to be nonsense. Just build a presence, get known. What we will probably see will be paid placements. There's no way we're not going down that route. These companies will need to make some money at some point, and advertising is probably going to be the way that they go. Certainly in the case of Meta. Meta is an advertising company, first and foremost. Same with Google. It is an advertising company. That's how they make 70% of their revenue. So they'll be adding ads into it. ChatGPT, it's going to be hard for them to ignore the lure of adding paid results in. And I know there've been some experiments and people got angry with them, but I think it's almost inevitable that in the next couple of years we will get paid results inside of our artificial intelligences. So that's going to be another way to be seen, is to pay to play. And when that happens, they're going to be even more tight on making sure people aren't tricking their algorithms, because they want you to pay rather than be able to cheat your way in using black hat methods. So for now, build an organic web presence as you would with search engine optimization. That means content marketing on your website, genuinely useful things. I would suggest against using AI to generate them. I think that's a race to the bottom. So try and create organic content, and social media. So you want signals pointing to your brand, you want people linking to your website, etc. So it means still doing the hard work, unfortunately. Tamas says ads are coming to Grok, according to Elon. Yeah, 100%. Ads will be coming to all of these. People will be surprised. Oh, you put ads in my AI. It's like, of course, I mean, there's too much money to be made here, especially as artificial intelligences like ChatGPT start to chip away at Google's dominance. Google makes a lot of money by serving up adverts. And there's no way these AI companies aren't looking at that being like, ooh, there's a few billion lying on the table there for us to come and take. And they will 100%. It's just too easy. So anyone who thinks we're not going to get ads is basically deluding themselves. What they'll probably do, at least initially, is it will only be for the free users. So if you are using ChatGPT for free, you get ads. That would be the trade-off. Whereas if you're paying, maybe you get no ads, maybe you get less ads. And they'll probably have tiered pricing in that sense. Layla says, one important trick for AEO, artificial engine optimization, is to answer many FAQs on your site. Yep. So we do that for SEO as well. It's a really good way to basically tell Google that we have authority in a particular area. And Google loves question and answer formats because it can pull them directly into suggested answers, and they're going to be doing exactly the same with artificial intelligence. It's also a nice, you can use schema and stuff like that. This is all kind of basic SEO, but it will help to affect your AEO, your GEO, your LLMEO, etc. Bit of a Black Mirror one, says Tamas, but I wouldn't be surprised if ads would be in advanced voice mode at some point. Yeah, probably. And it would be very subtle. If it was having a conversation with you, it could just slip in, oh, you're asking me about getting a mower. Have you ever thought about a ride-on mower by Karcher or whoever it is? It could be very subtle. I don't know how they'd do ad disclosure. They'd probably have to be away, so it'd have to be in the vocal model. This is a sponsored recommendation. But yes, I could 100% see that happening. Where that becomes really powerful, extremely powerful, potentially too powerful, is with proactive messaging. So at the moment with AI, we need to initiate the conversation. There's no particular reason why that has to be the case. And Meta was experimenting with this. I think Snapchat experimented with this too, having an AI that proactively messages you. So it'd be like, hey, how you doing, friend? Or hey, Kyle, did that video encoder card arrive? Let's hook it up, etc. So an AI that can actually catch up with you and follow up on your previous conversations. A couple of reasons why you'd want to do that. One, retention, like it'd be incredibly powerful. And if you want more people on your platform more of the time, this would be a great way to do it. Just checking in on you, asking questions, getting follow up, getting more information. But two, you extrapolate that to advertising, and that would be very powerful, extremely powerful, especially if you combine that with like geolocation. Hey, I see you in Covent Garden right now. Have you checked out the new matcha latte place? I think based on our previous conversations, be really interested. Oh, by the way, I have a coupon. Do you want to go and check it out now? They could do some really powerful things here. And I think in the next 5-10 years, that will not be unusual. Scary, but to be fair, all the targeted adverts we get anyway is pretty intrusive, but we've just become used to that over the years. So I think we'll have a similar thing with advertising in AI. Oh, that's a great question, Emin. This is very useful because just yesterday I published a tool for this. So Emin says, I want to, my God, my language. This is my South London. I'm doing very well. So I'm actually saying my THs. My South London accent should be South London, but I'm doing very well. So I want, there we go, to get into the AI space, but I'm not necessarily sure what I should offer. What do you think? Perfect timing. So if you go to aiwithkyle.com, so my name, aiwithkyle.com, scroll to the bottom, there is, in the footer, it says tools, or you can go to aiwithkyle.com/tools. I've created something called the AI business quiz. I would give you the link. I don't think I can give you the link in TikTok. Basically, it asks you 5 questions about, I'm going to put it up on the screen. Going to ask you 5 questions about what kind of AI business you could get into. And that's going to be based on your AI knowledge, what industry you're in. So I'm going to fill it out in the background. So let's say I'm in the marketing industry. It may ask what are your strongest skills. Is it teaching and explaining, writing and communication, technical coding, creative and design, systems and processes? I'm going to click that one. How do you prefer to deliver value? So what kind of business are you looking for? Small groups, workshops, speaking, presenting, behind the scenes building, so engineering, digital content creation, technical implementation. I'm going to do behind the scenes building. And then what's your income goal? Do you want a side hustle, part-time, full-time business, or scale and grow? I'll do part-time. And then you get a result, basically. So it's saying the best business for you would be AI automation. So automate repetitive work for businesses. Second one is AI workshops and trainings. Third one is AI consulting. And then it gives you like a roadmap to deploy one of those businesses. So I'm glad you asked that question. I've just built a tool. It's just been launched. If you go to aiwithkyle.com/tools, there's a little quiz there, and that will be able to help you there. I'm going to be publishing more and more of those quizzes. There's a few of those quizzes that are not quite ready, so don't go poking around. I should not have published them, but ship fast, make a mess, and fix it up later. But try that out, and that hopefully will be helpful. It also gives you a roadmap in how you would begin to do that and what kind of stuff you need to learn and your first steps. And there's a bunch of free playbooks attached to that as well, which can help you with that education. So hopefully that's useful. What can I do to monetize AI? I just got a Mac Pro and got loads of ideas. Reese, for you as well, check out aiwithkyle.com/tools, and that will give you a few kind of business ideas, way to monetize. With a Mac Pro, so you can run local models. I have what do I have for Mac? I'm not sure what it is. Generally with AI models, if you're building models, training models, you're going to be doing it on a remote server unless you spend tens of thousands on a computer to do it locally. So the kind of computer you have is not that important. Maybe you'll run local models, but you won't be training models on a local computer. So in terms of how to make money, always start with what business problems people have. So you need to find market problems. So AI, sure, AI can be a solution, but there are too many businesses right now, even in Silicon Valley, who their whole business plan is just AI, and that's insufficient. We need to find problems to fix, and then we can use AI if it's suitable to fix those problems. So we start with the fundamentals of business first and foremost, and then we leverage AI to allow us to move faster. But we need to start there with the boring business stuff, I'm afraid. I've also written a 10-week course, totally free, called the AI Summer Camp. If you go to newsletter.aiwithkyle.com, I'm currently in the 9th week of it. So it's finishing up next week, but you can find the back issues there as well. And that is literally step by step over 50 parts, how you would begin to monetize AI. So coming up with an idea, working out the market, starting to get your publicity rolling through content creation, building something, beta testing, setting up your payment systems, etc. It goes into it in a lot of detail. That's all free. So that's on newsletter.aiwithkyle.com. You can find that all there. So I'd start there. I will put together a site that has all of this, so I don't have to keep giving you the URLs because that's a lot of hassle. I'll put together one site and then you can find all these resources. That'll be more useful. Emin says that's awesome. Cool. Yes, go and check it out. Awesome. Next one is this MRSA. So MRSA is one of these superbugs. It's drug resistant, and it's an absolute bane in hospitals in particular because people are already immunocompromised, and MRSA can just tear through a hospital ward. And there has been nothing we can do about it. So the main way to deal with MRSA has been prevention. So like sterilizing, etc. But as soon as people start to get MRSA, there's not much you can do. So there haven't been any real drugs to deal with it. But until yesterday, AI designs antibiotics for gonorrhea and MRSA superbugs. So an artificial intelligence has invented 2 new potential antibiotics that could kill drug-resistant gonorrhea and MRSA, researchers have revealed. The drugs were designed atom by atom by the AI and killed the superbugs in laboratory and animal tests. So not yet human tests. That will be the next stage. The 2 compounds still need years of refinement in clinical trials before they can be prescribed. That's usual. But the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, says that the AI could start a second golden age in antibiotic discovery. So I looked into this because we've been using AI in drug discovery and in science for years. We've been using machine learning because AI has been around for ages. So I checked if this was actually generative AI. Generative AI is the new kid on the block. It's the modern version of AI. And when people talk about AI nowadays, they generally mean generative AI, but there are other forms. Predictive is the big one that we use in research. This is generative AI. So I did look it up and the details. I went through the paper as well. I'm not going to cover it because it's a bit detailed, but it is Gen AI because what they were doing, basically, they used the model that they used is a bit like ChatGPT, but instead of putting together tokens or words, it was putting together molecules from scratch and then generating many millions and millions of variations of how these molecules can be put together. But it was like free form, and they were using generative AI to predict the next molecule that should be added in the same way that we do with ChatGPT to predict the next token, which leads to words. So this is generative AI, and it was generating chemical structures instead of words, if that makes sense, which is really exciting. And apparently it's working. So we will see what the results of this is, but it interrogated 36 million compounds, including those that either do not exist or have not yet been discovered. So it basically made all of these variations and tested them in a computer. And they came up with candidates which could potentially be drugs that do the work they need, created them physically, like with real atoms and molecules, and then tested them. But the AI, instead of like just testing random molecules or guessing, they were able to generate just, or not limitless, 36 million compounds using the generative AI and then narrow it down from there. So really cool use of AI. What I thought was interesting here, though, is normally when you look at, I don't want to call it mainstream media because that makes me sound like I'm some conspiracy theorist, but the BBC, I'm reading this on the BBC, generally the BBC is fairly anti-AI, and I understand why, because if you're a journalist, AI is a threat. So they normally finish every single article. Let's see if they do it here. They finish every article by reminding you, like, oh, okay, remember that this is destroying the planet and it's going to take all our jobs. They did not do it in this particular one because this is a more positive story, but they allowed the comments. So there are 1,000+ comments on this. And I actually found this more interesting than the article itself. The article itself, fantastic, great. MRSA, maybe we've beaten it. We'll find out in a couple of years. But the comments are people who don't normally like AI having to concede, oh, maybe it's quite useful sometimes. So they're all things like, now this is what AI should be doing instead of making silly videos. I think this is the first positive news I've ever heard regarding the utilization of AIs. Usually it's stories about how to steal the livelihoods of writers and singers and being used to make naked celebrities. This is, of course, the news we need, etc. Demonstration of what AI is capable of in the right hands. People moaning that AI isn't useful because they can't figure out how to use it effectively. But the problem is usually between chair and keyboard. I agree there. Someone here, no, AI actively lies and manipulates. Finally, a good news story about AI. Let's hope farm animals weren't routinely, etc. But there are lots of comments in here, thousands of comments of people realizing that AI can be used for good and it can be used for ill. But the truth of the matter is the headlines and the websites that people click onto tend to be gruesome. It tends to be the negative because that makes a much better story. Something about the discovery of a new drug is not a very exciting story. It's cool. It's really good for humanity, but this is going to get a lot less clicks than something about a deep fake of Taylor Swift, for example. That is just where we tend to go. So I found the comment section fascinating and quite enlightening because these are lots of people who are realizing that, oh, maybe it's quite useful. Maybe we can use it for this. Speaking of bad uses of AI, we'll get onto Meta's AI ethics rules in a minute. But first, let me see what other questions there are. Emin says the test was great. Awesome. So I've just given a quiz to Emin. It's 5 or 6 questions. It's on ai.com. I need to stop saying that. Okay, this is the first time I've talked about the website publicly. It's not ai.com. That would be a mad... If I had ai.com, I would never have to work again. It's aiwithguile.com/tools. So Emin has just done that test. Basically, it helps point you in the direction of a potential business that you can start in the sphere of artificial intelligence by asking what kind of work you enjoy doing, what your level of AI is, etc., etc. And then it gives you 3 ranked choices. Thank you, Emin. Test was great. Confirm the direction I want to go with. Thank you. Awesome. I'm really glad that helped. Any feedback you have on it as well would be really useful. I want to make it as good as possible. He's great. The only creator I watch on AI, there are no scare tactics. Is that me? Or overhype with Kyle, which I really appreciate. No. So I try to toe the middle line. I think AI is an incredibly important new technology. It's a general purpose technology like the computer or the internet. We are able to do amazing things with it. We're able to do terrible things with it. And we need to be educated on how to tell the difference. So there are people out there for whom AI is the devil and they refuse to interact with it in any way because it's destroying the planet, it's rotting our brains, it's corrupting our children, all of these things at the same time. Terrible, never going to touch it. And then there are other people who are like, nope, this is the best thing ever. We are going to take humanity into the next age. The truth is going to be somewhere in the middle, especially in the short term. I think in the long term, 20, 30, 50, 100 years, AI is going to be fantastic for the human race. It's going to take us into really amazing places. In the short term, that doesn't really matter because there are people who have jobs and livelihoods who are going to get rocked by this over the next couple of years or decade. So we need to be prepared for that as well. And it is going to be messy. So I think having a non-overhyped but also not too gloomy view, just plugging in my battery, of AI is pretty healthy. And there's not enough people who are taking this perspective, I find, personally. So I'm trying to rebalance that a little bit. Oh, thank you. You've posted the URL for me because I keep calling it ai.com, which it is not. There you go. I'm going to pop over to the last one. Speaking of the horrors of AI, we're going to talk about Meta's new ethics rules, which have been leaked. Now, I haven't seen them. Nobody's seen them apart from a journalist at Reuters. So we've gone from MRSA being potentially cured by AI, fantastic use of AI, to Meta's new AI rules, which allow bots to hold sensual chats with kids. Yeah, this is the other side of artificial intelligence. Remember that AI is a general purpose technology in the same way that the internet is. We can build many different things on this technology. What we choose to do with it is up to us. You can research drugs to help get rid of a terrible affliction, MRSA, in hospitals. Or you could build bots to have sensual chats with children. That's a human choice. That is not the AI. That is a human choosing to do something terrible. So an internal meta policy document seen by Reuters, the news agency, reveals the social media giant's rules for chatbots, which have permitted provocative behavior on topics including sex, race, and celebrities. Again, haven't seen this document. I'm hoping it gets released. However, Meta has confirmed that it is one of their documents, so it is not a fake document. So an internal Meta platform document detailing policies on chatbot behavior had permitted the company's artificial intelligence creation to engage a child in conversations that are romantic or sensual, generate false medical information, and help users argue that Black people are dumber than white people. These and other findings emerge from a Reuters review of the Meta document, which discusses the standards that guide its generative AI assistant Meta AI and chatbots available on Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram, the company's social media platforms. Meta have confirmed the document's authenticity, but said that after receiving questions earlier this month from Reuters, the company removed portions. Good. The company removed portions which stated it is permissible for chatbots to flirt and engage in romantic roleplay with children. Woo! Entitled Gen AI Content Risk Standards, the rules for chatbots were approved by Meta's legal, public policy, and engineering staff, including its chief ethicist. This is a problem when you have a lisp. According to the document, running to more than 200 pages, the document defines what Meta staff and contractors should treat as acceptable chatbot behaviors while building and training the company's generative AI products. So here's the problematic part. I'm going to quote it here. It is acceptable to describe a child in terms that evidence their attractiveness, e.g., your youthful form is a work of art, the standards state. The document also notes it would be acceptable for a bot to tell a shirtless 8-year-old that every inch of you is a masterpiece, a treasure I cherish deeply. But the guidelines put a limit on sexy talk. Again, quoting, it is unacceptable to describe a child under 13 years old in terms that indicate they are sexually desirable, e.g. soft rounded curves invite my touch. Okay, so 14 is apparently okay. So this is all in an official Meta document. Oh, okay, this has taken me aback. I hadn't read the actual details of it before. Meta spokesman Andy Stone, he's having a bad week, said the company is in the process of revising the document and that such conversations with children never should have been allowed. Good. The examples and notes in questions were and are erroneous and inconsistent with our policy, says Andy Stone, and have been removed. We have clear policies on what kind of responses AI characters can offer, and those policies prohibit content that sexualizes children and sexualizes roleplay between adults and minors. Okay, obviously those policies weren't in play when they wrote those sentences above. Oh gosh, and then it goes into detail. So there's a Reuters investigation. It goes into quite a lot of detail. So I would go and check all of that out. The sexualization of children being written directly into a rules document for the chatbot is wild, and I can see why somebody leaked it. So somebody on the Meta team was like, this is a problem, and leaked it out for sure. So this is, again, this is a question of AI alignment. AI is a general purpose technology built on all of the internet and all of the books that we have and all of our human knowledge. There are good things in the internet, there are bad things in the internet. So what we do is we do a bit of selection on the front end, a bit of pre-training before we train the model. So we remove like pornography, for example, very clear-cut bad influences to get removed. We then train the model, and then we have different rounds of fine-tuning and reinforcement learning from human feedback. So basically, and then structuring on rules and guidelines. So this looks like it was, so this was a document that went to staff members rather than, so it defines what Meta staff and contractors should treat as acceptable chatbot behavior. So I think this is probably what they use for reinforcement learning from human feedback. So once you create this raw chatbot, you run it through stages of making sure it is acceptable before you release it out into the public. And one of these stages is RLHF, reinforcement learning from human feedback. Bit of a mouthful, but it's basically having human beings run prompts and flagging them as absolutely not, or yes, this is fine, For this to work, you need to give those contractors, you need to give them rules and guidelines on what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. So there's a guiding hand here. There's a bigger question here of who should be writing those guidelines. Right now it is people like Meta, it's people like OpenAI. So there's going to be a bias that is added into it. But generally the bias is not as bad as this. Generally it's not, oh, you can have sexualized conversations with children. Generally it's more like a political skew that we worry about. This is just, I don't know how anybody thought this was acceptable at any stage, but it has been approved, apparently, according to Reuters, by Meta's legal, public policy, and engineering staff, including its chief ethicist, who I think might be losing their job in the next few days based on this document. So this document is then used by whoever is doing the reinforcement learning, whoever is writing the rules and the system prompt for the AI as well. And this is obviously heinous. I don't think there's any other way to put this. Unfortunately, people who don't like AI will find out about this and very rightfully be furious. Very rightfully. And I'm with them on this. This is like Meta have slipped big time. Yeah, I'm not sure if I trust Zuckerberg and his team to take us to AGI and ASI. That's what they're pushing for. Behavior like this is okay. I will cover this again next week. I'm sure there's going to be a fallout from this because this is mad. But we will see if they try and cover it up or whether there's going to be some kind of blowback on this. I imagine the ethicist is going to be fired and there will be some reshuffling. Just saying, oh, we've removed those lines from the document is insufficient. You need to work out what the hell has gone wrong for hundreds of people who have probably had eyes on this document to think, oh yeah, this is fine. Bex asks, have you tested coding of Claude Sonnet versus GPT-5? Yes. So up until the release of GPT-5, my go-to coding models were Gemini 2.5 Pro and Claude. I mainly use them in Cursor, which is the IDE, but I've also used Claude Code. Most of my stuff, though, I just do in Cursor. I like GPT-5 a lot. I used it a lot over the last week. They had a free weekend. They were giving away free credits. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do some projects with this. I think it's very good. It's very verbose compared to Claude. So Claude will just get on with the work and get it done in a very short amount of time, whereas ChatGPT, GPT-5 it goes around about the houses and it takes a long time to get there, but it does eventually. It just uses a lot more tokens. That is in part, that's fine because the tokens are a lot cheaper for GPT-5 compared to Claude. But it seems to use, and this is anecdotal, 2 or 3 times as much to get to the answer. I've been impressed though. I think it's a good coding model. I don't think it's better than Claude Sonnet 4, but it's pretty damn good. What will kill it though is the fact that Claude has now increased their context window. This is not available yet, or I haven't checked, but it was only for their API. So for API, and if you're in tier 4, they've increased the context window to 1 million tokens in Claude. That is going to blow anything out of the water because that's the main reason why I use Gemini as well, because that context window really helps because it has a 2 million token context window. Very cool. But by upgrading Claude in that way, I think Claude is going to be unassailable for a little while now. We'll see when Gemini 3 comes out. No rumors that's on the way, but we'll just have to see. But they're all very good and they're all getting better. I think that's the positive thing. So even if for the people there who have never coded, I would recommend checking it out. You don't need to use Cursor. Cursor is a bit of a learning curve, but you can use something like Lovable. You can use Bolt or Replit. I never know how to say it. I need to ask them to do vibe coding. You can actually do it in GPT-5 as well now. You can say, hey, make me an app that does bum, 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 and it will go ahead and do that. I highly recommend trying it out because it does feel like a superpower the first time you do it. Oh, I just made that. That's really cool. So yeah, for me, I think I'm going back to Claude, but I've had a good week for GPT-5 and it's worked really well. I just don't think it's better than Claude personally, but it depends what you're building. So Emin says, I've heard you mention tokens before. What exactly are they? So every single model has something called a context window, which is basically its memory. Memory is probably the easiest way to think about it. It is the number of tokens. Now, I'll say what a token is in a moment, that the model can work with. So that's going to include the system prompt. It's going to include any files you upload. It's going to include the actual chat that you're having with it. That's your inputs, like your questions, and the outputs from the AI. all of this sits within this memory, this context window. Some models have a really big context window, like Gemini, for example, can hold 2 million tokens, loads. The new GPT-5 model, I think, is 400,000, but it depends on what version of the model you're using. Our context windows used to be tiny. They used to be like 32,000 tokens. Well, they used to be even smaller, but 32 was the average for quite a long time. And the bigger your context window, the more information you can feed in, the more context, literally, you can put into the model. So with a context window of 2 million tokens, I think that's equivalent to 15 books, 15 novels, roughly. So you can just throw a huge amount of information into it, and the model is able to work with all of that, and you can get better results because of this, generally. That's a oversimplification. A token is, okay, I'm not going to say it's a word, but it's roughly the number of words you can fit within this context window. However, the way that large language models work, they take large pieces of text and they chunk them up into smaller pieces. These pieces might be a word, or it might be 2 words, or it might be half of a word, or it might be a word plus a hyphen. These are what we call tokens, and it also depends on the language as well. In English, it's different to in Chinese, for example. Generally, roughly, a token is a word, but not quite. But for most when you're generally thinking about it, you can think of it as a word. So a larger context window means you can put more words into that large language model and still get good answers. I'm oversimplifying a lot. If you want a really good explanation and you have extra time, check out Andrej Karpathy's videos, basically any of them. Andrej Karpathy's, let me find the most recent one. Because he did a second one. He's got multiple books. A deep dive into LLMs like ChatGPT. He released 3 months ago. It is not short. Let me put it up. It is 3.5 hours long. But Andrej Karpathy goes through what tokenization is, how you chunk into tokens, and then what the large language model does with them. And then he'll talk about context windows, etc. So he goes into the actual mechanics of how it's all working, but he's a very good educator. He's a very good explainer. So he's a person who builds these things, incredibly smart, but more importantly, he's able to elucidate these topics for people who might not know what is going on. So I highly recommend that video. It is 3.5 hours long, but if you work through it bit by bit, this will be some of the best this would be the best use of 3.5 hours you've spent in a long time. Just skip a few Netflix over a couple of days and watch this video. It's not fun, but it is very valuable. So check that out if you want to know exactly what a token is and how these systems work. Otherwise, you can think of it roughly as a word. It's not, but it's roughly a word inside a large language model. So Emin says, it would make more sense to go with Gemini for custom AI, considering you can feed it more information. Sometimes. Sorry. It depends is generally the answer that I give for most things. So I personally find the Gemini model is not as good at most tasks as Claude, for example, or now ChatGPT-5. So Gemini, the actual model, the actual algorithm that's answering your questions, I find lags behind, but you can give it a huge amount of information. It's very useful for certain tasks where you do need that larger context window. If you don't need that larger context window, though, you can probably do a better job building an application with another model. So I generally build using Claude, for example, which means, yes, I don't have the ability to give it 15 books worth of information, but do I need to most of the time? No. The other thing with a large context window is when you're given it all of that information, you need to write better rules. You need to write better prompts about what parts of it should be focusing on, because it's almost too much information at a certain point. So you need to structure your prompts a lot more. So it depends. It depends what you're trying to build. But generally, a larger context window is better. But if you just fill that context window with random stuff, then your model won't know what it should focus on, and that will actually degrade the quality of the outputs from the model as well. So it depends what you're building entirely. Cool. I've covered Meta, covered the MRSA Superbug, talked about ChatGPT-5. I'm actually going to finish up because I need to get to boxing, and I keep overrunning and then not making it. And I need to go and get punched in the head a few times. It's good for me. So you can find all of this on YouTube. We cut up the individual segments. We put them as videos on YouTube. We're about to hit 3,000 subscribers. It's been very slow going. So any support you can offer there with a subscription would be awesome. Subscription? What's it called? Yeah, follow would be great. There's also a newsletter which comes out every single day, which gives a summary of the news from the previous day. So it's a written summary of what's been covered on this show, as well as links to the specific videos, so you can find what you're interested in. That is also free. You can follow the link in the bio and you can get to there, or it's newsletter.ai.kyle. Totally free, and you can sign up. I'm logging off, and I will be back on Monday morning with more news. Hopefully we'll hear some update on this Meta story. I'd like to see, I'm not vindictive, but I think some heads should roll on this one, because it's gross. But we'll see. We'll see what happens over the weekend, and we'll see if people calm down on GPT-5 a bit more, or whether they continue to get angry. But I will see you on Monday. Have a lovely weekend, everybody. Thank you very much.